the basic unit as far as the operating system is concerned, the basic unit of operation is basically a process, not a program. So from our perspective, it is a program. We write programs, we execute programs, we write programs which consist of several instructions, and we execute them. But from an operating system perspective, that program is basically divided into processes. Process is a program in execution, meaning that the entire thing is not happening. Some part of the program is converted into a process, which is a program in execution. Now, we also need to understand that, the process can also be divided into threads that we will see in the later classes. Then I also told you that a processor has some sections that are there. A process can be process which is nothing but a part of a program, can be new, running, waiting to be executed, ready to be executed, waiting for something else to happen, and terminated. These are the things that I told you. And there is a multiple state transition diagram. A process can be new, it can go to ready, it can be directly terminated, it can be waiting, and can be so all these transformations are possible from one state to another. I also told you that every process there is a unique identifier in the form of a process control block, and this process control block will have all the name of the process, the number of the process, the counter where it has to go, the next process where it has to go, the way where the other execution, the next instruction is there, and all those things, the global variables, the shared variables, the memory management, all these things will be there in the PCB. Now, we also need to understand that the CPU is not at any point of time focusing on only one process. CPU is a multitasker. There may be many programs that are running. Each program is divided into several processes. And interestingly, every process can also be broken down to threads. That is also possible. So please understand, a program is divided into many processes. A process itself can be divided into threads, which you have seen, Java, multi-threading and all. You might have heard about that. So, but the CPU does not work one at a time. The CPU swaps between various processes and threads. So, P0 process is executing. In between, an interrupt came. Then it stalls the P0 process and goes to the next process. After some time, P1 gets executed. In between, an interrupt comes. Then again, it toggles back to the P0 process. Maybe P0 and P1 are idle, another process, say P2, will start executing. So all the time, there is a toggling between one process to another, P0 to P1, P1 to P2, P3. That is how the processor works. And how it works is that an interrupt happens, it stops the P0, saves the state into the process control block where it stopped, and what has to be done next, that information is saved into the PCB or the process control block, and then it goes to P1. After some time, P1 is being executed, P1 is also stalled, it stops, the state is saved into the process control block of 1, and then it goes to P2. So this process goes on happening for the processes. So there are so many processes happening. I told you, a computer may have multiple programs. Each program has multiple processes. Each process may have multiple threads. So you can imagine the complexity that is there. Now, how do you schedule these things? How do you schedule these processes? Now, you may think, okay, I'll do a P0. I will wait. Let everything else wait for P0. It's a very straightforward argument. P0, let me finish P0. Let everybody wait. That is a possibility. But the computer doesn't work that way. Then it will be not at all efficient. If you are waiting for one process to happen, there may be some processes that may take 5 hours to complete. I'm just giving you an example. All other things will be stalled. So it is not possible. The CPU has to switch from process to process, can swap from process to process or thread to thread. And that requires what is known as the process of scheduling. Now in scheduling, you have queues. There is a device queue, like a storage queue. There is a queue for putting into the storage device. Putting into the printer, there is a storage queue. There is a ready queue where all the processes that are ready to execute are in the queue. They are all connected together in the form of the PCB or the process control block. This is like a linked list. I'm sure you have learned about data structures, the linked list. This is a linked list which connects all the queue of ready queue, all the processes that are ready to execute. Their respective PCBs or process control blocks are connected together in the form of a linked list. So there are queues available. Now how do you schedule these queues? There are different schedulers, but we also need to understand that this queue doesn't mean that the queue means it will happen. There is a process in the ready queue. This process is given time by the CPU. Ideally, this process gets executed. But sometimes this process may result in an input-output request. In other words, when this process came to the CPU, there was a print statement there. So that print statement gets into another queue because it is an input-output. Then this is a queue that goes to the printer. There can be a case where the CPU may stall this process. Even though it was ready and executing, it may stop it and it may put it in a kind of a pending or a wait list. And after some time, that wait list, that time may get expired and that process is dying. A process may also fork a child process. Means just like the process got executed and it gave a print statement, the process may create another child process. A process may wait for an interrupt statement to happen and then it gets stalled. So the life of a process is not so straightforward. It is not that when a process is ready, it just goes to the CPU and gets executed. It may happen in various ways. It may open an input-output request. It may die on its own. It may start a new child process. It may wait for an interrupt and not execute. So many things are possible. Now, who schedules this? The scheduling happens in multiple ways. There is a schedule that works, a scheduler called a long-term scheduler or a job scheduler that does scheduling in seconds and minutes. And what it does is it puts these, the long-term scheduler is only concerned with the ready queue. It is updated maybe every 1 minute. The long-term scheduler will keep all the processes available in the ready queue. It is probably 1 minute. And once in a minute or once in 30 seconds or once in 50 seconds, this long-term scheduler puts all the processes into the queue, ready queue. But the actual scheduling, and now this is a long-term scheduling, all the processes are waiting here. But the actual scheduling happens by the CPU scheduler or the short-term scheduler, which works in a matter of milliseconds. In the milliseconds, it will select the, here this is long-term scheduler, everything is waiting in the queue, a ready queue. This is long-term or job scheduler. But once it comes here, then the CPU scheduler does this subtle toggling and swapping and switching. And this CPU scheduler works in a matter of milliseconds. Every millisecond there is some scheduling going on. So one process comes, it has a print, it will go there. The next one is dying. The next one is, all these things are done by the short-term scheduler or the CPU scheduler. So actually the CPU scheduler is the one that selects which process should be executed and allocates the CPU. The long-term scheduler only keeps these things ready in the ready queue. And mostly it is this CPU scheduler that does most of the actual scheduling. Now, there is one more way which we will learn later called a medium-term scheduler. We will see this later, where there is a process of swapping. So, there is something being sent to the CPU and the CPU scheduler is ready to execute, but sometimes we can put a priority and swap that process out and bring a more priority process inside. But that we will see in the later classes. So just understand that long-term scheduler or job scheduler puts all the processes in the ready queue. It happens probably every minute. But the actual scheduling is done by the short-term scheduler or the CPU scheduler, which is invoked every millisecond. And that decides which process gets into the execution. And every millisecond something is happening. Now, even there is a way to swap also. Maybe the CPU scheduler has put this. But if there is a higher important request, this can be swapped and something else can be brought over here. That is what we see here. There is a swap out and a swap in. But that we will see in the later classes. And this is done by what is known as a context switch, which we will learn in the later classes. Now, as I mentioned, processes can create child processes. Parent process can create child processes. And a tree-like structure can be formed consisting of parent and child processes. A parent and a child need not be a master-slave relationship. It generally happens is that the parent and child will share all the resources, but it's not necessary also. A child need not share all the resources of the parent. Child can be a subset. A child and parent can also be mutually exclusive and not share any resources. All these possibilities are there. Now, generally speaking, a parent can only terminate when the child is execution completed and a child is terminating, but it need not be also. There are cases where a parent and child can execute concurrently, but generally speaking, if the parent has to terminate, it has to ensure that all the childs are also terminated. And how it happens, this tree structure, there are some commands or system calls that we use for this child making having a child. Fork will create a child. Execute in Unix will be used after a fork is there to replace kill the child, so as to speak. Fork will create a child. Execute will kill the child more or less. Then there are other system calls like abort, where you want to terminate the child process. There is an exit where you process executes last statement and then the operating system to delete it using the exit call. Sometimes the parent will ask or the child may ask them to wait. So there are different system calls. So basically understand that a parent can create a child. Generally, the child will share resources, share attributes of the parent, but need not be so also. Parent child can be different. And system calls like exit, abort, fork, execute, do this thing. And in some cases, the parent has to, most cases the child has to terminate, but sometimes it doesn't happen. The parent terminates, but the child has not executed, then that process is a zombie because it did not invoke the wait command. It just got executed without telling the child to wait. So then the child is always waiting for the parent, and that is a zombie. But the parent terminated without invoking wait. That means the parent terminated but did not tell the child to wait, then that child becomes an orphan. So these are subtle ways by which this parent-child or master-slave relationship between processes are happening. There are system calls like fork and execute. These are all Unix commands. A fork is to create a process. An execute is to replace the memory space of the child. An exit is to kill the process. A wait is to ask the child to wait for before termination. And another way to terminate the child is abort. But these are various ways by which the operating system manages this processes. That's all for today. I will close for today. Now I see everybody is there, so I will mark you all present. I hope everybody is there. I see 37, so that means everybody is there. So we have time till 15th of August before your September, before your midterm starts. So I would think that the midterm syllabus would be the first 4 chapters. I'm now in the 3rd chapter. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for you. Hopefully before the midterm itself, we will complete the all the quizzes. I'm only planning 4 quizzes. I'm planning to complete all the quizzes before the midterm, and the same syllabus will be there in the midterm also. But I may also ask in the labs, I may ask for some programming assignments also. Now we are only doing simple commands. Moving forward, first 3-4 lab sessions will only be simple commands, where more or less you are getting full marks. But then in the subsequent lab sessions, we will have some evaluation lab sessions. So that's how the grade will be distributed. The way you manage those execution, those evaluation labs, I would think there would be 2 or 3. I've told Radhika ma'am also to plan on what should be those things. But now please go through all these Linux commands that I have taught you. Today afternoon also I will teach you some simple Linux commands. Again, same way like last week, you just submit it today between 2 to 6. That's all for today. So I will try my best to finish the syllabus also ahead of schedule, so that you are also free. That's all from my side. So we will meet in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. See you. Bye. See you in the afternoon. We can leave. Bye. Any doubts?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.